This is Coda Radio, episode 319 for July 30th, 2018. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine, powerful sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Yes, me? Oh, thanks for asking. My name is Chris, but who we really care about is that wise, perhaps maybe a little messy, with food all over his belly right now, Michael Dominic. I don't know why. I just feel like maybe that's how you look right now, Mr. Dominic. You know, when you're sick, you just don't take care of yourself, you know?
Let me tell you something. I have a theory.
You got the tissues sticking out of the nose. It's just a mess.
It's a horrible mess.
That's what happens when you get kids.
It's just like, you learned in school that the plague was started by rats, right, and ships to Europe. I think it was just one 2-year-old decimated the continent.
Yeah, he went to school. And he got all of the other 2-year-olds sick, or preschool as it may be when it comes to a 2-year-old. He got all the other 2-year-olds sick, and then they bring it home, and they infect the workforce, and they inflict society with mass non-productivity. Not that I get worked up, and
it's like the germs mutate into super germs.
I just can't even. I have 2 sick kids right now, and it's summertime, and I mentally, like when it starts to get nice out, I actually think to myself, now we're gonna have a break from them getting sick, and 2 of them are sick. You know what?
That's exactly what happened to me. Lulled into a false sense of security.
Well, I can tell you are in prime form today. This is going to be, this is going to be a good one. You know, and actually, in kind of a way, it's perfect because if we would have done the show last week, it would have been mid-hype cycle around that whole MacBook Pro throttling thermal limit stuff, which we have now, which I'm sure we would have gotten wrapped up in. You know us. I mean, right, come on. We probably would have been pragmatist about it, but we would have probably been ribbing Apple and give them a hard time a little bit. And it's still actually, maybe we should talk about it a little bit because it's still not a valid choice. Yeah, it's still not a solved situation completely, but everybody probably doesn't need to recap it super quick. The new MacBook Pros came out, and you can get an i9 version that's got all the cores, like 6 cores in that, which is just fantastic for a laptop. But a lot of people noticed under certain workloads, especially sustained ones, like say Handbrake, a sustained like 30-minute encode with Handbrake, which would be a fairly common workload for me. That would start to see pretty significant throttling as the temperature of the CPU cores would go up. And people really jumped on this, kind of assuming, well, this is it right here. Apple didn't build these things for these modern Intel CPUs that didn't get as small as everyone thought they were going to, and they're hitting the thermal limits just like they did in the trash can, and they've designed themselves into a thermal corner again, and everybody dogpiled. And YouTube really got in on this one. That was an interesting aspect to yet this controversy once again, is what a big role YouTube played in spreading the hype. And it turned out that a, quote, digital key was missing from the firmware that shipped with the MacBook Pro. And so they issued a supplemental update to macOS High Sierra, and that supplemental update has this digital key, which I deconstruct that to mean that they had probably a file that gets loaded dynamically at boot time that wasn't properly signed.
Yeah, so it's a deployment problem.
It literally came down to what they tested wasn't what they deployed in production. That was actually, and only this time it was code that shipped on physical hardware.
Right. And before we start, just taking a bite of this juicy burger here.
It's an apple, actually. I don't know if you...
Oh, fair point. Yeah. I love the irony that Apple, who forces everybody to do pain-in-the-ass code signing, is like, well, you should just know how to do it for user security. Good, right? Gets tripped up on code signing. Woohoo!
To be fair, I wouldn't be too surprised if it was maybe an Intel thing. Maybe Intel didn't properly sign something. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe Intel has to sign something for the CPU to load it, and they got to, I don't know, who knows?
Yeah. I mean,
it's all a binary blob mystery machine to us.
It's a binary blob.
It is.
So don't order the i7 sausage. Is that what you're telling me?
I won't name the person, but I had a conversation with an employee at Dell who said the new XPSs were designed with thermal throttling in mind. I'm not sure if it was the XPSs. It might have been the Precision. There was a new Precision workstation where in the past, a core design goal was no thermal throttling. Like you could ramp up the GPU and the CPU. In this case, it was a Xeon CPU, a laptop Xeon. You could ramp them both up full blast, and in theory, they would not reach thermal limits in this laptop. Now, it's a big, thick laptop, big 17-inch, big, thick laptop. Right. And they did the market research, and they looked at the sales numbers, and they determined that there is more sales in a thinner, smaller laptop that still has a lot of that performance, but if you push all of the subsystems together, it will begin to thermal throttle. Yeah. And Dell just looked at the data and said, that's the decision we're making with these future laptops. So now the model I have is the one previous model. It's a big sucker. It was a $10,000 laptop that I have been using as an extended testing machine. And I'll tell you, my favorite feature is that it doesn't thermal throttle, that I have a big portable laptop that I can throw massive encoding jobs at, and it never throttles. And I feel like, once again, the market is saying, really, there's not much of a demand for you anymore. And so the mass market is just really moving on. And I guess maybe that's to be expected. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. But that's the statement I'm getting here, is not that Apple's made a mistake, is that the market doesn't care. Because I've talked to another vendor just on an off-the-record chat, and that was the messaging I got, is that they did the research.
Yeah, it seems like there's a few things. I don't know if you recall, Chris. My MacBook Pro crashed because of what I suspected were thermal issues
recently, like between shows, right? Like
between shows, right? Yeah. We had a week. We missed a week, and I went to the Genius Bar, and that went not well. So a few days later, I call Apple. And they were actually kind enough. Even though I was just out of warranty, they gave me a replacement, which nice. I guess they had a refurb or something.
Really? Wait, what?
Yeah, they just gave it to me. I was a little annoyed. I said, I went to the Genius Bar and they wouldn't even look it out without me paying for a diagnostic. And I said, how could I have broken it? It won't turn on. I didn't drop it. There's no damage. But they said, because it was like a week out of warranty. I mean, it was one of those stupid situations. Mm-hmm. So see, I said something positive about Apple.
I'll say this too. When they did that recall for the MacBook Pros, where the video cards, it happened many times, but the ATI video cards went kerplunk. I brought mine in, which was way after warranty, but they did like an extended thing, and they replaced the motherboard, and then they threw in a new battery too, for free. Yeah. And so I got back a machine with a brand new CPU, GPU, motherboard, all new wireless, all new parts. The only thing that was still used was the screen and the keyboard, which were fine, and a new battery. We turned that around and we sold that to the community on eBay, I think, and bought Linux hardware with that. Like it was a completely usable machine all over again, and it cost me nothing other than my time to go down there and exchange and give it to them.
There you go.
So there are good things here.
There are good things. But so one thing that I've been struggling with. One, I broke 2 laptops in 2 weeks because I'm awesome. I don't even know how to say this. We're old.
Yeah, and we also used computers in a time where it was just a niche market, and now it's a mass consumer market.
But I think we even use them in a different way.
Yeah, of course we do, yeah.
So, the idea that I have right now, for reasons we'll talk about in 320, this replacement MacBook Pro, hooked to an Apple LG display and a Dell 27-inch
Apple LG. I know what you mean. That's just a funny word.
You know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the LG that you can't plug it into anything else. And I have a laptop running 2 monitors with an AMD graphics card. Before we got on the air, I had Qt Creator open, which we should talk about in 322. And 20 tabs on Firefox, Chrome, and I think I even had something at developer.apple.com in Safari because I needed some kind of one of my certificates. And it just occurred to me, I'm hammering this thing, right? I opened system information, I'm using all the RAM. A CPU was idling around 70-something%, basically. Because if you think about it, I'm doing something in Qt, so I'm running the application. I have a debugger attached to it. I think I had music or YouTube or something on in the background, and I have roughly infinite Chrome tabs and Firefox tabs.
Plus any messaging application.
Right, and my wife's sending me messages on iMessage, and I have Slack open.
Yeah.
I have 14,000 instances of Chromium because everything's an Electron app.
Yep.
And I'm doing this all on a laptop, and I keep having these problems. Long-time listener to the show will know. Am I just wrong? Right? Should these devices not be used in that manner?
I think maybe you have a little bit of bad luck, too. But I look at this and I think to myself, I'm going to become less and less empowered to make purchases. Like there's going to be less and less hardware that applies to my particular work case, and I think that's where you're particularly at too. And I we had a note in here to chat about what about people coming to their defense, and then, I've thought about it, but I think I'm here to actually defend them to a degree, and that is just that this isn't hardware for users that really want to push their systems a lot. And I think there's an elephant in the room that we have to come back to from time to time. And it's funny because we were going to make this episode all about software, and here we are talking about hardware. You can't beat a desktop system.
Oh, the Mac Pro.
No, like just a tower. I mean, the Mac, maybe they'll make one, but like a tower PC with plenty of thermal sealing, plenty of cooling, even if it's not like outrageously done, even if it's just a standard air-cooled PC, it has so much more performance potential. I just really question if we've really just gone astray by being so focused on laptops. I appreciate portability as much as the next guy. I really do, especially when I'm traveling. I really grok that. It's the recent flying has made me rethink any future laptops. I don't think I'll be getting a laptop larger than 14 inches from here on out, and things to that degree. Like I totally appreciate that. But in my workflow, there's never going to be a situation where the laptop is my only machine. And I know that's true for a lot of you out there. And so I gotta rethink this a little bit and think to myself, maybe I need to have a certain level of expectation for portable hardware. Like I'm looking at new hardware myself, not a MacBook, but I'm looking at new hardware myself. I'm re-questioning assumptions I've had for a long time. Like, do I need a 4K screen? Can I really get away with a 1080p screen where I don't have to fuss with settings as much and perhaps battery life is a little better? And there's just small things like that I'm considering now, and with the mindset of I'll always have a desk with a pretty powerful PC. I update my PC every few years. I'm not like religious about it, but I generally try to build a pretty decent one or buy one that's pretty decent, and then just use the hell out of it for years. And then I still find them to be much, much faster. Like a desktop PC, I find to be, like, say, a 3-year-old desktop PC, I would put that up against a 3-year-old laptop any day of the week. And
oh, sure.
Of course, right?
Yeah,
of course. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? That tells you everything right there, that these machines are better built for these types of workloads. They have higher thermal capacities. They have more I/O capabilities. They have more PCI Express lanes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I was previously using, my Optiplex running POP, and now I'm actually using it as a flight simulator. We could talk about that more. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
Something for a project I'm doing, and I have like a trigger hooked up to it and everything. Very
really,
gun.
Really.
Yeah. So, but it's not dedicated to doing that, and the reason it's the only thing with a good enough graphics card that I have.
I love
but it, you know what? I think you're absolutely right. Like guys like us, Chris, we just have to. It's not worth it. And if you think about the like design of a laptop, I mean internal design, not like aesthetics, of course they're going to fail more, right? You have all this heat right next to the screen. You have keyboards that are increasingly becoming thinner and thinner. You have crazy throttling limits, right? And then you know what? You can't update them anymore. I mean, I know some vendors will sell you a laptop that you can open up, but even then you usually can only like pop in another stick of RAM. Where a desktop, hey, if my Dell doing the flight simulator, if I decide that it's just not good enough,
yeah,
I can open it up, spend maybe $400 or $500, and get a really nice NVIDIA card.
Yeah, I'm having some weird graphics rendering issue on this recording machine where parts of the UI, like the menus and title bars, aren't rendering properly. I don't know what I would do if this was a laptop. I mean, I think I would start to just assume I'm having board issues, but with this, I'm pretty much thinking I'll probably pop out that $90 NVIDIA card that I popped in there a year ago and go to Best Buy and get another $90 NVIDIA card and pop it in, and it'll probably take care of my graphics issue, and I won't even have to touch the drivers. Like, it'll just be pop one thing in, pop another thing out. And that is what I need from my systems, is that kind of work. That's a different... I was having a conversation with a person who's in the trades, and he's like, man, if I had a screwdriver that wasn't working for me, like, it wouldn't even be a question. I would just immediately replace that sucker. Immediately. We get kind of caught up in it, and as like, because they're part toys too for some of us. But Yeah. All right. Well, that's not what we came here to talk about today. No, in fact, not at all. We probably just robbed from Peter to pay Paul a little bit, but it had happened in between episodes. So let's maybe move on here for a second. So I'll take a moment and I'll thank Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. linuxacademy.com/coders is where you go to sign up for a free 7-day trial and support the show. It's a platform to learn more about Linux and all the things that run Linux, including all of the big services now, like AWS and Azure. Speaking of Azure, we'll have a link in the show notes. Linux Academy has an opening right now for a training architect on Azure, and it's a remote position. It's something to think about. You'd be creating full-length, online, self-paced Azure curriculum, which is an area that they already have rolled out a ton of content around and plan to roll out a lot more, including a lot of community stuff like potentials for being on podcasts or blogging and things like that. So it's a pretty fun position. So if there's somebody in the Azure space in our audience and wants to go to Linux Academy and help train more people up on that platform, there's a job opening, which we'll have a link in the show notes at coder.show/319. But Linux Academy is a training platform for everyone. If you want to learn something about the essentials of Linux, or you want to learn how to work with block storage, Linux Academy has courseware on that. And they have different levels where you can jump right in on something if you just need to refresh your skill sets, or you can start from the very beginning and work all the way up. They also have courseware to get you ready for certifications and to prepare you for new tracks in IT. So get started by going to linuxacademy.com/coders. That's linuxacademy.com/coders, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial, and you support this here show. linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Mr. Dominic, we have async to talk about today, but perhaps I should wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. You know, like if I couldn't be a cheese from time to time, what's my motivation for sitting down in front of this big microphone and this mixer, right? I mean,
literally nothing, right? Yeah. So, you know, we often like to say how much we just really like all Microsoft technology.
Oh, yeah. I got it. Did you see my Sache tattoo I got? No, I'm kidding.
More importantly, where is the Sache tattoo? Is that perhaps a Nadella stamp?
I'll have to show you in private sometime. Yeah, Nadella stamp. Oh my God. Okay, all right. Somebody title that. That'll get some
Nadella
attention.
stamp. I think that's it.
So the Nadella stamp.
The Nadella stamp. Oh, this went off the rails. From time to time, I like to do these little, I call them Pallet Town posts. They're basically like pseudo-codey introduction to a programming concept. Of course, the comments and replies I get on Twitter are like, hey, you missed the syntax isn't right. Of course, it's not meant to be. On async await, and the reason is I keep hearing about async await. It's not necessarily new. It was originated in the C#.NET world. That's why Chris got his Nadella stamp. Basically, it solves a pretty big problem, asynchronous programming. Simply put, you have let's do a real world scenario, and this is going to be like a totally contrived example. You are building a Nadella stamp app, and you need to pull different pictures of Satya Nadella off the internet to, let the customer pick which Nadella stamp they want.
Sure.
Well, you don't want to lock up your entire UI while you download those images, right?
That makes sense.
So you would do a thread, right? Traditionally, what we would do is like, pull up, let's do it in Objective-C, right? NS thread, blah, blah, blah. Later on, you might do a block, URL connection. I forgot what the exact API is, but it's like perform operation in background. But then you get things where you're doing like callback delegates, right? The old school Cocoa way would be like, operation did finish, successful, yes, no, and then you have to handle it. Another way would be to use a C block where it's literally effectively like a JavaScript callback from a practical point of view. Though that's not technically correct, but that's how, from a developer sitting at a keyboard point of view, that's what it is.
Sure.
But then some geniuses thought, the code for my Nadella stamp app is just a little too complicated. Here's what I'll do. Async await. What that lets you do is your code, instead of having like nested callbacks or delegate patterns, it just looks like linear code. So you would have like a method, in that method you might have search for, await, search for Nadella, await, download selected Nadella pick. And this is where it's cool. by using in .NET, they use a task object. Effectively, the CLR and the system itself just like writes a bunch of code for you to attempt to optimize that backgrounding and that asynchronous pattern. This is one of those things that if you ever go to a developer meetup and you hear the C# guys bragging, this is probably what they're bragging about.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah, because it's actually pretty cool, right? Like, read the article I wrote. My explanation's a little sloppy, but the other big thing is it's so popular that like other languages are adopting it. ECMAScript, which I insist on calling ECMAScript because
because I've infected you. It's my fault.
You've infected me with the ECMA.
Yeah, with the Xamarin.
So async await does indeed work on Xamarin. And Xamarin, if you're Chris. It's coming into ECMAScript. It's in a bunch of other languages now. I think it could be coming to Swift. I heard a little birdie got in my ear and was like, Swift may adopt it too. It's pretty... Now, I'm kind of two minds on it. It's super cool, and I also don't like having like nested callbacks because that's an anti-pattern, and that may or may not be a sign that you've done things wrong anyway. It's also in TypeScript, as Micah68 in the chat says. That's correct. There is something deeply frightening to me about how, like, if you use it heavily, how much of your application is just basically being rewritten by the CLR. I don't know. I feel like I don't want to put on my old man hat, Chris, and be like, oh, write your own code. But there are cases, like if you get into, in fact, one of the Reddit comments to the article I posted was I do a very naive example of it using, I think, like Charmander attacking some other Pokemon. And it's an admittedly super naive implementation. And it turns out one of the Redditors, because Reddit is the place where people understand subtlety and like, this is just an example, don't pick it apart, correctly pointed out that in those types of naive implementations, the generated code can get weird in a couple ways. Like, it will do what you want it to do, but it may indeed not be as performant as like just writing a callback or whatever.
Yeah. Shocker.
Although it's one of those things. It's very magical. So it's good. I think like if you are a like new developer and you also have a Nadella stamp and you're working in .NET, certainly this is a pattern, async await, that you must know. This is pretty strong on that side of the street. But don't, like, I've personally reviewed some code that's like, I'm going to async await everything. But the app takes forever to load. So, yeah.
I like your post. Again, it's in the notes at coder.show/319. I mean, you get me with the Pokemon, and then I can't help but read it. So
that's why I do that.
It's pretty clever.
Just for you, Chris.
Pretty clever. Also, some posts to MSNDN. That's easy for me to say. MSDN's write-up on async.
Async await. Yep.
Yes, very nice share. Very nice. Is that been the result of some late-night experimentation? New projects?
Yeah, as usual, I started a project in .NET and then didn't want to work in Windows. And maybe we save that for the second episode.
All right, get that. I like it. Okay, well then I'll take a moment and thank DigitalOcean, do.co/coder, no S. If you go to do.co/coder, you get a $100 credit for 60 days. Could you imagine? Could you imagine when you could, I mean, just think about the days when you and I used to order up servers and racks. And now. Yeah. Now you can get $100 in credit. do.co/coder. Go there. It's a simple and scalable platform with industry-leading price to performance, predictable cost, clear billing, and a bunch of great systems to pick from. My favorite is 3 cents an hour. You get 2 CPUs, 80 gigabytes of SSD storage, 3 terabytes of transfer, 4 gigs of RAM. Everything, every system, every box is using enterprise-grade SSDs. You have data centers all over the world. 40 gigabit hypervisor connections, cloud firewalls that you can configure to block traffic at the network level, an easy-to-use API that's well-documented, and tons of libraries and code you can take advantage of right now. You can build on top of or just deploy apps that have already been created. And they have easy DNS and SSH key management and team management, which is a super nice feature of DigitalOcean. And all of it you can try to see how simple it is and how nice their dashboard is for 60 days with a $100 credit when you go to do.co/coder. Build build better web apps. Again, something's wrong with the mouth today. You can build better web apps faster with DigitalOcean. And I say that because we went from hey, this is something we should do recently, to an idea that's fully in production and a site that the site that is online and the community is using right now. It's awesome. Get Jupiter. Check it out. GetJupiter.com. It's a new site running right now that went from idea to full production because DigitalOcean is so straightforward to work with. Their tools are so intuitive, and the team management stuff works really well. And that kind of thing, at least when you're a constrained business like we are, that kind of thing makes all of the difference. So check it out, do.co/coder. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder radio program. do.co/coder. So I've decided this is kind of along the tools and things that we use to work. I've decided to reduce friction with traveling. I'm going to go for TSA PreCheck, which I've kind of been morally against because I'm a curmudgeon, but I've decided to do it. So they have this process where you affirm who you are online, and then you book a thing, and I have to go in and do an interview and prove who I am with my documents and stuff, my baby papers and whatnot. But I just figured, make travel a little bit easier and reduce the friction to going to events and stuff, because I hate the security. Have you thought about doing this? It seems like it's a pretty good system.
I'm strongly considering it because I travel enough now that it's
yeah, you do. It's $85 and it's good for 5 years. So even if you only travel a few times a year, I feel like it's pretty much worth it because you go through a different line, which is much shorter, usually no more than 10 minutes, they say. You don't have to take off your shoes. You don't have to take your laptop out of your bag or your tablets. You don't have to do that kind of stuff, which I'm all about. Because I know this sounds really stupid, but I stress out to the point where my hands get sweaty, and I feel like I'm having a very, very, very mild anxiety attack about the possibility that for some reason I won't get through security, or something I value will get stopped or lost or misplaced because I've got microphones and XLR cables and USB cables and multiple laptops and a switch and all this stuff that and obviously my phone and my wallet and my watch and all of these things and the stuff, my keys that I'm taking out of my bags and putting in these bins, and I'm using 3 or 4 bins, and I feel like a jackass. And they have requirements, things have to be flat and stuff, so I have to use multiple bins.
Right.
And that's still, it's just very stressful because then you get on the other side and it's a race to put everything back together and put your shoes back on.
Yeah, I hate that part. It's you're getting dressed. I mean, you know how many times I've actually lost my driver's license in Orlando Airport twice already.
Oh, man.
And the one time I never got it back. I had to then go to the DMV and be I am who I say I am. Can we see your license? Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. See, I think this is not it's not it's going to, I don't think I would have ever had a huge issue. But it reduces the possibility of an issue, which reduces my anxiety about traveling, which reduces the friction of traveling, which makes me more likely to go places via plane instead of only via RV. You know what I mean? Which means more places are more economically reachable for me, is kind of what my thinking is. So we'll see, because then I can fly into a place, be an event, be there, and then fly back for the weekend, and be back home by the weekend is my hope. So we'll see. We'll see I'll see how this TSA thing works. That's what I'm doing after the show today. Is I'm going down there and trying to prove who I am. Please believe me. So
who would pretend to be Chris Fisher that wasn't, though? I mean,
yeah. I know, right? Come on.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what people's gear travel tips are and hacks. I'll give you what I've done so far. So here's my existing travel hacks. So don't suggest these. I'm going to do the TSA PreCheck. Obviously, just mentioned that. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work with a few hotels that are on a couple of frequent routes that I take out of Washington and see about leaving a bag there. So I don't have to pack a bag frequently when I'm traveling to certain frequent destinations. And so I've gotten the okay by one hotel so far, and I haven't talked to the other hotel. But and it's just basics, clothing that's appropriate for that area, toothpaste, toothbrush, shampoo, stuff that you can't really fly with because they're the liquid container restrictions, that stuff, and an outfit to wear is in a bag stored at a hotel room. And it's a $20 bag from Walmart. So it's not, and it's the clothes are all cheap too. But I got it while I was there, and and I just realized, okay, this is the kind of clothing that works best for this area. So that's plan 1 and 2 is TSA PreCheck, and then a couple of key locations I might stash a bag, or at Noah's office maybe I stash a bag, things like that. So I'm curious what other people's tips are for traveling with some gear and laptops. I'm trying to do the one bag, no check, one bag, backpack, walk on the plane, just the essentials, coder.show/contact. Let me know what your tips and tricks are for when you're traveling for work or for whatever, and you have to bring your equipment that really matters to you. Like, you can't do your job if anything happens to that equipment. I'd love to know your tips, tricks, and hacks. Coder.show/contact. But Mr. Dominic, we should probably make it a short show because you are sick and need to go to bed and rest, and I have to go prove to the TSA that I really am at Chris LAS. So what do you say? Any words of wisdom, things to leave the folks with before we get out of here?
Well, don't tell them you know me and Putin at the TSA. That's all I got.
No, I won't. Yeah, I won't be mentioning that or the fact that you're hiding Ed Snowden down there in Florida. That will not be coming up. Is there any Twitter URLs you'd like me to give out to the TSA or maybe the audience?
Follow me on Twitter at Dumanuko. The TSA can join the IRS. A lot of fun.
That's creepy. You know what? That's good advice. You can follow me too at Chris LAS. The whole network is at Jupiter Signal. Our live times, like if we're doing a double or something like that, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And our IRC room is irc.geekshed.net. And again, that website is coder.show. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. I hope you join us for next week's episode. You can get your subscribe links over at coder.show/subscribe. And if we don't see you in the next couple of days, keep an eye out. There may be a show. You'll definitely see one next week.